What's up everyone, Senpak here, and today I'm going to discuss my draft analysis for the 5th season of the Fun Pokemon League, or FPL for short. Now, despite the name, which would suggest this isn't competitive, this is a competitive Pokemon draft league, and it's the first league I joined that's part of the draft league website made by Automatic, which is really cool, and I'm very excited to be a part of it, and I'm looking forward to some good matches. So before I get over my draft analysis and what I decided to choose for my team, let me just set the rules straight for what was standard in the FPL Season 5. Since Gen 8 came out, there's been a lot of variations to the rule sets, so I think it's pretty important to get over that first. So this is going to be a showdown draft league with a tier-based system instead of points-based, so there's Pokemon that are tiered from 1 to 5. It's going to be national dex anything goes, which means any Pokemon from any of the games are allowed. It doesn't have to be solely Pokemon that are in Sword and Shield, which is awesome. Megas are going to be allowed as well, but Z moves are not going to be allowed, as well as Dynamax, due to how hard it could be to prep for Z moves, and especially Dynamax and Gigantamax from the new games. As far as Baton Pass goes, we cannot pass speed and another stat, but we can pass speed by itself or any other combination of stats like a curse and a calm mind, whatever it may be. While it is national dex, moves like return, signal beam, the ones that got removed from Gen 8, pursued as well, I believe. There might be one more. Hidden power, how can I forget? Hidden power as well, so those moves are not going to be allowed due to their removal from Gen 8. However, mons that have lost moves such as Knockoff or Defog or Roost after being transferred to Gen 8, or rather, their arrival in Gen 8, they can still use those moves. So if I draft, let's say, Bisharp, it can still use Knockoff, Mantine can still use Defog, etc. So with that aside, let's get over my draft and what I decided to choose for my team. So to start off my draft, I'm going to talk about my tier 1 that I decided to choose, which was my first pick. So I ended up being 8th in the overall draft spot. There were 20 people in this league, and I got the 8th pick, which is close to the middle, which isn't that good, but I made use of it. I was fine with it. I usually get bad draft positions anyway, so I'm kind of used to it by now. But there were a lot of good options this time around, since there were Mega Blastoise, which now gets Shell Smash, which is very scary, Galarian Darmanitan, Aegislash, which is not banned anymore, Celesteela, Tapu Koko, a lot of really good options that I could have chosen. I was pretty confident I would get something really good, and I was right. So I did initially want Mega Blastoise, but that got taken from me in not round 4, but by the 4th person, unfortunately. But I did end up getting Mew, which is a very good start for my draft. So with Mew, I get a lot of options, which is why I really like starting with a Pokemon like this. I'm not going to name all the options it gets because there's way too many, but just to name a few, it does have access to Stealth Rock, which is obviously a very important hazard. But now, with the new TRs that are in Sword and Shield, it has access to Spikes and Toxic Spikes, so I can run whichever hazards I want on my Mew, which is very useful. On top of that, it also gets a new setup option in Dragon Dance, which it did not get before, which is really good because now I don't have to just rely on Sword Stance to try to sweep. I can also raise my speed as well with the Dragon Dance, which is very good. Mew is a very capable sweeper as it has very good coverage. It has a move of every type. I'm absolutely sure of it without even looking at its whole move pool. It has fire coverage if you need to hit steel types. It has darker ghost coverage if you need to hit ghost types. It has water or grass coverage if you need to hit rock or ground types. It has anything you need it to do, which is very nice. And as far as my draft goes, I really tried to build around it as a sweeper. That way, it didn't have to fulfill a defensive role. That's why I drafted a lot of mons that would fulfill itself defensive roles just as well as it could. That way that leaves Mew with the option to run a good offensive set. So just to say some of the options Mew gets, though, just to list a few, it gets support with Trick or Trick Room if I want to set it up for a slower Pokemon. It gets hazard removal with Defog. It's a very good cleric if you can give it Heal Bell to remove status from your team. It has momentum with either U-turn or Volt Switch, which is very nice. It can phase with Dragon Tail or Roar. And it can also spread Will-O-Wisp and Thunder Wave, which is very helpful for any of my other Pokemon that want to try to sweep or to make it easier to wall certain Pokemon. So overall, Mew is very good. Its stat spread is all 100, which also helps in how versatile it is because none of its stats are particularly bad. And its ability is not the best, it's synchronized, but it can be good in certain situations where my opponent's going to want to cripple my Mew. At least I get a chance to cripple it back, which is nice. And probably the worst thing about Mew is its psychic typing because I don't get secondary stab, which is unfortunate. And it doesn't particularly resist the best types. I'm pretty sure Psychic only resists Psychic, Fighting, and I'm almost certain that's it. Not that useful. However, Mew is very capable as it can fulfill good defensive, offensive, and support capabilities. Very happy I got this round 1. Oh, and how can I forget? I almost forgot my nicknames that I was going to give these Pokemon. Forgot to say those. So my nicknaming theme is going to be based on My Hero Academia, which is an anime I've been watching recently, and I've been liking it a lot. I've only got to season 2 so far, but I'm liking it a lot so far. It's really good. So my first nickname here for Mew is going to be Pinky, which is the hero name for Mina Ashido in the show, and she's a pink-colored alien who spits acid as her power. And while Mew doesn't really exactly get recognition for that specifically, Pink Alien kind of fits the title for Mew here. So Pinky is going to be the nickname for Mew. And next up is my second pick. I wanted another decently versatile Mon. I was thinking of Ferrothorn at first, just to get more hazard setters, a good steel type, and just an overall bulky Mon that's hard to take down, especially with no hidden power being around anymore. But sadly, Ferrothorn was taken from me, I'm pretty sure. So I decided to instead go with another pretty good steel type, Scizor. And I'm very happy with this pick overall. Very good ability and technician for Scizor here, rocking the bug and steel typing. Overall, a pretty good stat spread with very good attack stat and decent defense. The HP could be a bit better and it is pretty slow, but other than that, it's got decent stats. Now, its move pool is where it really shines, along with its great typing, of course. But this Pokemon provides us with good momentum option with U-turn. It gives us really good priority with Bullet Punch. And overall, just a really good defogger as well, which is very important because I don't want Mew to be forced to run either Defog or Stealth Rock, and this is my start of me supporting my Mew. When I picked the Scizor, I thought to myself, this is a Steel type, I can remove hazards, which is very helpful. And that's the trend that's going to continue. I'm going to get Pokemon that can fulfill the roles that I don't want Mew to fulfill usually. That way it can be the best offensive threat in every matchup I play, or at least most of them. Now, along with that, Scizor also does get reliable recovery, which I did forget to mention for Mew, very important. These Mons can heal themselves back up if they get damaged too much, and will be overall very difficult to take out, which is huge. And Scizor also gets access to Swords Dance, which can make it a pretty good late game sweeper. So overall, Scizor is pretty good with Mew. It can provide Mew with free switch-in to set up, which is nice due to the slow U-turn. And it starts our Dragon Fairy Steel core, which is a very important set of 3 types to have when you have a draft. So that's the start of that. And as for the nickname for Scizor, we're gonna go with Real Steel, which is the hero name for Tetsu Tetsu in My Hero Academia. And as simple as it sounds, that hero can just turn his whole body into steel, basically. So kind of a simple nickname there, but fits very well with Scizor. So overall, good pick with Scizor. And now for my next Pokemon, I decided to go with a water type. At first I was thinking of getting a pretty good dragon type, such as Kyurem, which now gets Dragon Dance, but I wanted a different dragon type that could provide me with a better defensive typing, so I saved that for later, and instead decided to get Rotom Wash. Overall, very, very, very important pick here. This was one of the most crucial mons that I needed on my team, and it provides me with a lot of good utility. Rotom Wash having the Levitate ability is nice because it gives me an electric type that isn't weak to ground, and with its dual stab being water, it means that Volt Switch is very deadly because they cannot just freely bring in a ground type due to most of them being weak to water. So very good typing on Rotom Wash, only being weak to grass and resisting flying, water, and ice, as well as fire, which is very well paired with Scizor. And that's why I really like Rotom Wash here, because it pairs excellently with Scizor as a Volt Turn core, so whenever Scizor needs to escape pressure, it can U-turn, and it can go back into Rotom Wash, which could also keep generating momentum, which is very nice. And both of them can reliably bring in Mew, which can then set up for free, which is nice. Other support options that Rotom Wash gets is Status in Thunder Wave, oopsie days, and Will-O-Wisp. These are both huge as it helps Rotom Wash reliably wall certain physical attackers and can slow down the opposing team to help mons like Scizor and Mew successfully sweep. Another thing that Rotom Wash gets that's very helpful is Defog. So it gives me yet another Defogger. That's two of them so far other than Mew, which means I don't have to rely on Mew for removing hazards, which is really nice. And just recently in this gen, another really good option Rotom Wash got was Nasty Plot, which allows it to also be a good offensive threat. With Nasty Plot, Thunderbolt, Hydro Pump, and probably a filler coverage move, something like Dark Pulse or even Shadow Ball. This one can actually be very threatening, as it does have a pretty good special attack stat of 105, so I would not sleep on this thing setting up. And other than that, I think those are most of the main options that Rotom Wash gets, as well as another very important one being Pain Split. Pain Split, while not being reliable recovery, does allow Rotom Wash to dwindle the opponent a little bit and regain some health, and paired with its low 50 HP stat, Pain Split can be very effective, however it is prediction based. But overall, Rotom Wash is very good for my team. It has a decent speed tier, which is the main issue with my team right now. My fastest Pokemon is 100, but this is only the third pick, so I didn't want to worry about speed too much. It has a very good defensive typing. Pairs well with Scizor that can resist, so it can resist Fire for Scizor. And Scizor can resist the grass moves that Rotom Wash doesn't want to take, so they form a very effective Volt Turn core, which I like. Now, as for the nickname for Rotom Wash, I decided to nickname Rotom Wash Charge Bolt. Now, sounds like a simple name, but Charge Bolt is named after Denki Kaminari, whose main abilities revolve around emitting electricity. And it's simple, again, but the overall aesthetic of Charge Bolt, or Kaminari, whatever you prefer to call him, fits with Rotom Wash here, and Rotom Wash gives me a derpy vibe, which is also prevalent with Kaminari in the show, so I'm really digging the nickname here. So next up on my list of mons that I drafted, draft pick number 4 is going to be Gengar. So Gengar is something I didn't expect to get, but I was kind of stuck with what I wanted to draft next. But Gengar actually provides a lot of useful things that I need for my team. Main thing being a very fast Pokemon, so stat-wise is where this Pokemon shines, as it has a 130 special attack stat and 110 speed. Which I really needed, because if you look at my team, I mean, I had Scizor, who hits hard on the physical side, Rotom who could sweep on the special side, but was mainly drafted for a utility mon, and Mew could do either one, but I really did want a strong special attacker who can help break down those physical walls that don't prefer taking special attacks. And Gengar does a good job at that, and despite it being pretty frail with its lackluster bulk, it does have a pretty decent typing that gives it immunities to fighting and normal, and some decent resistances to grass and poison, which are both 4x resistances. That being said, its move pool is just filled with good coverage. Ghost and Poison Stab is very hard to switch into, and it has a very good coverage option with Focus Blast to hit the steel types that it cannot normally touch. Dazzling Gleam is good for hitting the dark types that it cannot normally touch too well, and Energy Ball can be good for the bulky waters that it does not prefer to take down with Ghost or Poison Stab. Along with some interesting support options, Knockoff might sound like a niche choice, but it can be good for taking out an item that could be problematic for your team if you think you're going to force a switch out. Otherwise, you don't really want to click Knockoff. Nasty Paw is huge because Nasty Paw gives another setup option for a Pokemon that is 110 speed and hits very hard, a lot more threatening than Rotom Wash. And if my opponent's not ready or gives me the opportunity to set up a Nasty Plot, that's huge, and I can just sweep and win right there. And other than that, there's not really much to talk about with Gengar. It also does get Taunt for utility, and stopping either removal or Thunder Wave or my opponent from healing. Taunt's a really good option in general, especially on a fast Pokemon like Gengar. Along with Will-O-Wisp and Toxic, this is actually huge because I forgot to mention at the beginning, Toxic is only allowed on the Pokemon that normally learned it in Gen 8 and not allowed on the rest of the Pokedex. So this means mainly only poison types learn it, the ones that were brought to Gen 8 in Sword and Shield. So the only Pokemon, spoiler alert, that I drafted that has Toxic is Gengar, and while this isn't the best user of the move, it can still be pretty useful for crippling certain walls that are very hard for my team to take down. Along with Will-O-Wisp can make for a good utility move if I can take a certain hit from some, not special attackers obviously, physical attackers, but usually I'm not going to run Will-O-Wisp on Gengar, but it is an option. And other than that, there's not much else to talk about with Gengar, just a very good special sweeper overall. It is a very nice Scarfer with the 110 speed tier and hitting very hard, and overall just really solid mon. And the nickname I have for Gengar is Kurogiri, which is one of the villains from My Hero Academia, who kind of bears a similar resemblance to Gengar, a little bit more human-like, but both of them have this shadowy appearance and use shadows to attack, so kind of makes sense to me. Alright, and after Gengar, I was looking at the tier 3s. There wasn't really anything in particular I needed right away, so I went straight to my Mega pick because there weren't many good Megas lying around left. A lot of people were taking some of the higher tier Megas like Mega Charizard X or Mega... I'm trying to remember which other ones, but there was one that I remembered wanting, and it was Mega Aerodactyl at first, but sadly that got taken a few picks before me, so I had to go another route with what I wanted to draft, but I ended up getting something I'm overall very happy with. I ended up getting Mega Altaria. Mega Altaria is almost as versatile as Mew, but not really, but it is one of the most versatile Megas, which is really good on my end to draft, and it provides us with a Dragon and Fairy type, so that technically completes our Dragon Fairy Steel core, all within 2 picks, which is nice. And if you look at Altaria's stats, it can be a good physical or special attacker. It's not the fastest, but it provides us with a fairly bulky mon, so I can EV it to be a physically defensive wall, a specially defensive wall, whatever I need it to be, depending on the matchup, which is really nice. Now, as far as its move pool goes, it's another Defogger, so that's our third one other than Mew. Still continuing the trend. Now, I really will never need Defog Mew in a matchup unless all of my Defoggers are bad in one matchup, but that's usually not going to be the case. So Mega Altaria is not the best Defogger since it is Flying type before it Mega Evolves, but it is an option for sure. It is another Pokemon with reliable recovery in Roost, which is very good. It gets setup options with Agility, Dragon Dance, and Cotton Guard, which can all be good depending on the matchup. It gets very powerful Stab, either Facade, Body Slam, or Double Edge. All are good options. It did lose Return, which is kind of unfortunate for it. But even besides that, Double Edge is hitting very hard, and it does have Roost to heal itself back up if I'm running a Double Edge set, as well as Hyper Voice if you want to hit through sub or run a special set. Its coverage is pretty good, Earthquake and Flamethrower to hit Steel types. Very good support options for my team as well with Heal Bell and Haze to remove stat changes so that setup does not stomp all over me. Now, as far as synergy goes, Mega Altaria works very well with Scizor, as Mega Altaria resists fire, which Scizor does not want to take fire moves, as well as Scizor resisting almost all of its weaknesses. Scizor resists poison, well, it's immune to poison, it resists ice, it resists fairy, and it resists as well. I believe that's everything. Those are the 3 types that Mega Altaria is weak to. Scizor resists all of them, or is immune to them. So they pair very nicely together, and yeah, Mega Altaria was just a very solid pick overall. The nickname I went with for Mega Altaria ended up being Gravity, which is the hero name for Uraraka, who is one of the students whose quirk is to make things float, and Altaria is floating. It's a cloud bird thing, so it kind of fits. Alright, now for my next pick, now that my Mega was out of the way, I really wanted to finish my Fire Water Grass core, or at least continue it, since I already had my Dragon Fairy Steel core pretty much completed. So I decided to go with Virizion, which is not a Pokemon I expected to get at any point, because I used to not be a big fan of it, but after looking at it more carefully, I noticed it actually gives quite a bit of nice value for this team. So this was a good tier 3 grass type. Its typing is a mixed bag, being resistant to water, grass, electric, and dark is really nice, but its really bad weakness to flying along with fire is not that useful, but it does have a decent stat spread and good move pool to take advantage of. And along with its ability, which is a big reason I drafted it, it pairs really well with Mew because it can take any dark type hits that Mew doesn't want to take, or Gengar as well, and it punishes the opponent for going for those moves. And that gives me an opportunity to break down the enemy team, which gives me a chance to set up later with Mew, Scizor, Rotom Wash, Gengar, my whole team pretty much. Anything that I want to make my win con. Now, as far as stats go, Virizion's kind of weird. It's got good bulk with its good HP stat, okay defense stat, and really good special defense stat, which this is the first true special tank or special wall that I have, which is nice. Along with a good speed tier, which I told you was a problem I had earlier with my draft, but now with a 108 speed tier Mon, that gives me 2 Mons over the speed of 100, which is very nice. Now, although its offenses may look lacking at 90, its move pool definitely makes up for it with Sword Stance and Calm Mind. These are going to be 2 ways to where I can make Virizion a scary threat. Now, I didn't mainly draft it for the setup reasons, but you'll see why I drafted it later. It'll make more sense. But it can be a pretty good breaker with Sword Stance, or a bulky setup sweeper with Calm Mind. It does have access to Synthesis for reliable recovery, which is definitely important for a grass type because this is going to be my main ground resistance or answer to water types. Yes, I do have Rotom Wash for both of those things, but there might be some cases where Rotom Wash has too much pressure in a matchup, so it's good to have another Pokemon that can accomplish that. And along with that, it doesn't really get too much support other than Roar, which can phase out setup sweepers, and Taunt, which is very nice for Pokemon that are trying to heal up or set up hazards on me. Other than that, there's not much more to why I drafted Virizion. I'm tired of these tournament pop-ups. I think I'm going to just close this tab. But other than that, yeah, not much else. It does get Stone Edge for flying types, which is very notable. Its coverage isn't wide other than that. It's mainly going to rely on Dual Stab. But I mainly got this Pokemon because it is a very good partner to Mew, and it pairs up well with Rotom Wash, because Rotom Wash is not going to want to take grass moves, and Virizion is a decent switch into those. But not only that, Rotom Wash takes the hits that Virizion doesn't want to take very well, because Rotom Wash is resisting the flying type, the fire type, and the ice type moves that Virizion does not want to take. So Rotom Wash is a fail-safe switch in on anything that wants to hit Virizion, which can then generate me momentum, which can then put me in a good position in a match. That being said, this is probably my least favorite nickname on the team. It's just going to be Vine. I'm not a fan of this nickname, but I'm naming it after one of the characters from Academia, and this was the only real fit. And this is the hero name of Ibara Shiozaki. So I didn't have many options here. I mean, the girl in the anime, known as Vine for her hero name, she literally has vines for hair, so I didn't really see why not. Not too many grass-related heroes in the show from what I've seen so far. So I went with Vine. Not the best nickname, but we'll rock with it. So for my next pick, I decided to just complete my Fire Water Grass core right off the bat, and one issue I was slowly noticing was I don't really have many hazard setters. My only hazard setter right now is Mew, and like I said earlier, I want to clear any pressure off of Mew to perform support roles. So my next pick for this team was, drumroll please, Colossal. Now, Colossal is a new Gen 8 Mon, and I'm very excited to use it. Colossal provides mainly Stealth Rock, if I'm being honest, that's the main reason I drafted it, but also Spikes and Rapid Spin. So this takes away any pressure for Mew to set hazards, and is the only Pokemon in my Fire Water Grass core that can set hazards. But it also gives us Rapid Spin, which is very important in matchups where I don't want to clear my own hazards, especially if I'm running Toxic Spikes Mew in any certain matchups, or if I'm running Spikes on Colossal here. Now, as far as its typing and stats go, it is very bulky overall, mainly being a physically defensive wall, but offensively speaking, it's not the best with both 80 offenses, but at least it can run either physical or special, and it's not really outspeeding much either. But as far as ability goes, it's actually very good with its abilities. It's very versatile, and all three of its abilities give me really nice options with my team. Both Steam Engine and Flash Fire are good paired up with Scizor, because with Flash Fire, it gives me a boost to my fire type moves when I take a fire type hit, and I know I already have a bunch of switch-ins to fire with Rotom Wash and Altaria, but this punishes my opponent for clicking a fire type move right off the bat, because then I can click Flare Blitz or Flamethrower on Colossal and do a lot of damage despite its lower offenses. Or if I want to be more of a late game threat, I can go Steam Engine, which raises my speed by 6 whole stages after I'm damaged by a fire or water type move. Not going to really want to take a water type move with my 4 times a week water typing, thanks to Rock and Fire. But even with 30 base speed, even with 30 base speed, after 6 speed boosts, I'm going to be able to outspeed practically any Pokemon, and even though this is a weaker Mon, after weakening a team, Colossal can just take out the rest of the team and finish house from there. Pretty gimmicky, but it is an option I have to finish the game with Colossal. as well as Flame Body, which is definitely the least useful ability in this case, but it can punish Pokemon going for U-turn with a 30% chance burn, which is kind of nice. Now, as far as its typing goes, it's not good on its own because it has both a 4 times weakness to water and ground, which is, those are two of the most common types, so that's not good to have. However, I really wanted Colossal, and this is one of the reasons I drafted Virizion, because Rotom Wash, Virizion, and Colossal are a very effective Firewater Grass core for many reasons. Rotom Wash can give momentum into Colossal to either remove or set hazards, and can also give momentum into Virizion to try to set up. And typing wise, they pair up very well because Virizion and Rotom Wash don't resist Bug, Fairy, Poison, and Normal, both of them collectively. They don't resist any of those types. Meanwhile, Colossal is resistant to all of those types, which pretty much completes the core right there. There's nothing that can really damage these three Pokemon heavily except for a Ghost type. Ghost is the only type that can really touch my Firewater Grass core effectively, which I do solve later on. I solved that issue later on. But other than that, Colossal doesn't really do much. It's mostly a Rock Setter or a Remover, but there are some nice abilities on it, and it pairs up for a very good Firewater Grass core. Now, as far as my nickname goes, I named it Red Riot, which is based on one of the characters from Academia, Kirishima, and he has a quirk that pretty much hardens his body and makes him sturdy, which kind of fits with the fact that Colossal is a rock type. And his hair is like a fiery red kind of hair, so kind of fits with the fact that Colossal is a fire type. So I just thought that character embodied the typing that Colossal had pretty well. Now for my 8th pick now, I was really in need of a ground type, and this was one of the picks I was most terrified would not get to me. And you can ask anyone, I was freaking out in chat hoping to God I would get this. Thankfully it did make it out to me, and I was ecstatic that I even got this far in round 8. Even though it's not the best ground type, I really needed it for my draft. And the ground type I went with was, really wish I could fit more than 6 Pokemon here, but I have to do it this way. Mudsdale. Mudsdale, just a pure ground typing, perfect for what I needed it for. I wanted another rock resist, I wanted another stealth rocker, and that makes 2 stealth rockers other than Mew, which are both fairly reliable ones. Colossal does have trouble in a good amount of matchups due to its bad typing, but with my Rotom Wash and Virizion, it could be helpful to bring it, and it does alleviate some of the pressure of its weaknesses. But if I think that's still not enough for me to bring Colossal, I have Mudsdale as a backup stealth rocker. Mudsdale doesn't have the widest move pool, but it gets Stab Earthquake, and hitting off of 125 attack, that's gonna sting. So I do really like the stat spread of this Pokemon. It gives me another physical tanky Pokemon, but overall Mudsdale can take special hits as well because its HP stat is just really good. So ability wise, it's also really good with Stamina, one of my favorite abilities in the game, to be honest. Stamina raises defense by 1 after getting hit by any move. I can switch into a special attacker, I can switch into a non-contact physical move, it doesn't matter. I'm going to get my defense raised by 1. And this is really nice for Mudsdale. It really lets it live longer than it should, and lets me get rocks really easily, which is important for my team to, you know, chip down the enemy team and let my offensive mons easily sweep. Other than that, it does get Roar for phasing, which is good because I can rack up hazard damage with Mudsdale, as well as letting out any mons that are trying to set up on me, since Mudsdale can be setup fodder for some mons due to its not best offensive move pool. But other than that, I mean, it doesn't really get too much support options. It's mainly just here for Stealth Rock. But that's fine, that's why I drafted it, and I also drafted it as an electric immunity because for the time being, electric was very scary for me. I didn't want my opponent to get free volt switches and be able to bring in some offensive threats for free or just keep pivoting around. So Mudsdale is huge here. Mudsdale is very important. And the nickname I gave to Mudsdale was Pony Sunatori. Glad I spelled that right. Now, that's very different from most of my other names. As you can see, it's a whole name because this character, spoiler alert, or I guess it's not really a spoiler, but this character doesn't get a hero name as far as the anime and manga have run for, at least up to now. But Pony Sunatori, I mainly picked the name because, I mean, her first name is Pony. Kind of fits with Mudsdale, even if it's a horse, not specifically a pony. But appearance-wise, Pony also has horns, which Mudsdale doesn't really have. But again, I really did like the name fit here for Mudsdale, so yeah, this is the good horse, Pony Sunatori. Very glad I drafted this. So the next pick that I wanted was something that could take on dark or ghost types, because I felt like my team was really weak to those two types at the moment, mainly ghost, because I did have switch-ins to dark with Virizion and Mega Altaria, but I didn't have a single ghost resist at my disposal, and I didn't want to let a good offensive ghost type run house on my team. So the next pick that I decided to go with was Umbreon. Now Umbreon, not as good this generation because of some of the mechanic changes, but it was still a very important pick for me in tier 4. Umbreon provides me with a very bulky dark type with 95 HP, 110 defense, and 130 SpDef, so it can practically take almost any hit. And it is a very good cleric with Wish and Heal Bell. Wish is the main reason I drafted this mon, to support the bulky Pokemon I have that cannot heal itself reliably, like Mudsdale, Colossal, and Rotom-Wash, and it helps keep longevity for this core that I have, my Fire Water Grass core, that may not want to run reliable recovery, because the only mon in my Fire Water Grass core that has reliable recovery is Virizion, and even then I won't always have the move slots for that. So it's really good to have Umbreon to just keep those Pokemon healthy, so that they can continue to switch in and pivot for my team. Another good option that Umbreon gets is Foul Play to take on any physical sweepers that might want to set up in my face. It can't do that freely thanks to this move. And if I really need it, I can run Moonlight on Umbreon, so that has reliable recovery. So that's also a good option. It can spread paralysis with Body Slam. Sadly, it lost Pursuit to be a threat to offensive ghost types, but that's fine. It still gets priority Sucker Punch. It still gets the option of Taunt against slower walls to prevent them from healing, and it can even set up with Curse, as gimmicky as that is. But the non-gimmick here is, and this is another reason I really like this Pokemon for this team, Baton Pass. Passing curses with Baton Pass can be really good for some of my Pokemon like Scizor, maybe even Mew on certain occasion, or Colossal, to make it really hard to kill them. And I also like the fact that I can Wish and then Baton Pass pretty safely to whichever mon I need to recover up. That's what I like to prefer with my Wish users. I usually like getting one that can get U-Turn or Baton Pass. So that's the main reason I went with Umbreon. Ability-wise, it doesn't really get anything too good. Mainly Synchronize to punish any Pokemon that might want to Toxic it, so that I can at least Toxic it back. But then again, most Pokemon that get Toxic now are Poison types anyway, so not incredibly useful, but can still be a niche ability that can put in work. However, not at all the reason I drafted this. But overall, Umbreon just works really well with my team. It provides reliable recovery to the Pokemon that can't heal themselves, and is just there to take those ghost type hits that Mew doesn't want to take, that Gengar doesn't want to take, and that pretty much most of my team doesn't want to take. Even with its loss of Toxic, I still think this was a good choice for my team. Now, the nickname I ended up going with was Midnight from My Hero Academia, who's one of the teachers in the academy, and I mostly just picked that name for the aesthetic purposes, because they both kind of give off a, not an edgy vibe, but just, you know, kind of a dark type vibe. And Umbreon's obviously a dark type, right? But mostly for the name. The name was just very fitting for Umbreon, since when you evolve it, you gotta evolve it at nighttime. Makes a lot of sense for Umbreon here. Glad I picked this mon up. Next up with my 9th pick, sorry, my bad, my 10th pick, was a Pokemon that I didn't want at first, but just fit really nicely overall with what I needed for my team, any holes I needed to fill. At this point I had most things. I had my Fire, Water, Grass core completed, I had my Dragon, Fairy, Steel core completed, but even with Mega Altaria covering Dragon and Fairy, I thought it would have been really nice to get another Fairy type to cover the fact that I was kind of weak to Dragon, since only Scizor was my resist, and Mega Altaria isn't Fairy type until it Mega evolves. So to cover that small weakness I have, I decided to go with Granbull. Granbull's not the best Fairy type exactly, but it was a nice value pick in Tier 5 that I thought fit my team decently well. Main reason I wanted it as well was for Intimidate, because I did not have a Pokemon with Intimidate yet, and this is going to allow me to weaken any physical sweepers or threats that might pose a problem to my team and make it easier to switch into the rest of my Pokemon that might want to pivot into them after an Intimidate. Granbull provides me with a physically offensive Fairy type that has very good coverage, such as Play Rough, Brick Break, or Close Combat, Crunch, Earthquake, Fire Punch, Ice Punch. It gets all the coverage you would need, and it's a pretty solid wall breaker, I would say. The defenses are not the best with 90, 75, 60 bulk, but Intimidate does help with that, and it isn't outspeeding much, but it at least is hitting hard and has a good defensive typing that isn't weak to particularly much. It can also set up with Bulk Up, which can be good in certain matchups, and it can be a Cleric with Heal Bell, and while it doesn't get reliable recovery, it does work really well with Umbreon, due to the fact that Umbreon can safely pass a Wish off to Granbull, which can then sponge any fighting type moves that Umbreon doesn't want to take, as well as some bug type moves, even though that's less common. And Granbull is threatened by poison and steel types, which, while Umbreon doesn't quite cover that, Umbreon can definitely switch into some of those, mainly steel types, because it does not want to get toxic, and can at least recover it back up with Wish Baton Pass. So I like how Granbull works here. I like how it works with my Scizor, who can U-turn into it if needed and intimidate any threat, and I think it was just really nice to have another Fairy type. Now the nickname of Granbull here is going to be Anima, who is based on the character from My Hero Academia named Koji Koda, who honestly just kind of looks like Granbull. They both have a really large jaw and just a weirdly shaped head in general, and he has the ability to command animals, and last time I checked, Granbull's a bulldog, so that kind of works out. Glad I got Granbull. And for my 11th and final pick of the draft, I decided to go with a Pokemon that would cover the one thing that I'm not happy with still on this team, which is speed tiers, even though I have 3 Pokemon that go at least 100 or above in terms of their speed tier. But I did want to have a Pokemon that can abuse a really fast speed stat, one that could be a versatile attacker on both the physical and especially offensive side, and someone who would also generate momentum if needed. I didn't have Flying Stab yet on this team, or a flying type in general. I did have good ground immunities and resistances, but for the last Pokemon I decided to choose for this draft, definitely not least, I went with Swellow. Now Swellow, kind of simple what it provides for me here. It provides me with a Pokemon that can easily take out opposing grass types. It gave me another Pokemon that gets U-turn, which is huge because I do like having a lot of momentum with the teams that I draft. And while this team doesn't have the most that I've ever seen on one of my drafts, it has a good amount of it. It has either Brave Bird or I guess Air Slash or Hurricane for Flying Stab. It gets Defog if I need it, but it's not particularly bulky. and it does have nice coverage in Heat Wave for Steel types now. Where this Pokemon really shines will be its abilities. Guts will make me a threatening physical wall breaker due to the fact that I get an attack boost with a Flame Orb. That's equivalent to a Choice Band. Even hitting off of 85 attack, that's going to be really threatening towards the opponent. And Scrappy is also very nice because it allows me to hit Ghost types with normal and fighting moves. Mainly good on the special set because this Pokemon gets the absurd move Boom Burst. And Boom Burst is going to be able to take out anything that isn't a resist if I slap a Choice Specs on this thing. So this was the one Pokemon I wanted to just patch out my speed tiers and be the one nuke button on my team that I didn't exactly have just yet. And I think it was a very good choice. It doesn't particularly have direct synergy with my team, however, it does allow me to break the opposing walls that might get in the way of Mew to allow Mew to finish the game and sweep. So I do like the pick of Swallow here. Other than that, I don't think it offers much more to my team. It does get phasing with Whirlwind. Don't know when I'm going to use that. It does get priority and quick attack just in case I need it. Probably good with the Flame Orb Guts set in certain cases. Kind of a not that versatile mon in terms of its move pool, but it does have a threatening physical and especially offensive set, and that's why I picked up Swellow. Now, the nickname I chose for Swellow was Tsukuyomi. Let's see if I spelled that right. Yep. Tsukuyomi is the hero name of Tokoyami Fumikage, who is one of the students in UA High in My Hero Academia, and simply enough, he's kind of a bird person. He's based off a raven, and while Swallow isn't exactly a raven, that was the one bird from the show that I can relate to Swallow, and they both look pissed off all the time, so I thought it was a pretty fitting name. That's going to be it for my draft analysis. I don't think there's anything else to cover. So my draft overall was Mew, Scizor, Rotom Wash, Gengar, Altaria, Mega Altaria that is, Virizion, Colossal, Mudsdale, Umbreon, Gramble, and Swellow. Anyways, that's all for the draft analysis. I'm pretty confident in this draft and love how it turned out. Thank you for watching and hope to see you in week 1 when I play my first match for the FPL against the Elkhart Sawsbucks. See you there.